If you had told me a year ago that my family would be tested by a single dinner, I would have laughed. We were the kind of family that stuck together through everything: holidays, heartbreaks, even the little things like burnt toast and forgotten birthdays. But all it took was one night, one lie, and $3.6 million to turn everything upside down. It started on a rainy Thursday evening. The kind where the sky feels heavy and the world seems to hold its breath. My mom had called us all for dinner. Me, my brother, my sister, and of course, Grandma. Family dinners weren't unusual, but this one felt different from the start. There was a tension in the air, a nervous energy that made my skin prickle. Mom was bustling around the kitchen, her smile a little too bright, her voice a little too high. We gathered around the table, the smell of roast chicken and garlic bread filling the room. Grandma sat at the head, her hands folded neatly in her lap, her eyes sharp as ever. She was the matriarch, the glue that held us all together. Even as her health had started to decline, she never missed a family dinner. She'd built her life from nothing, survived wars and heartbreak, and somehow managed to turn a tiny bakery into a small empire. The family fortune was her legacy, and everyone knew it. Dinner started off normal enough: small talk, laughter, the clinking of glasses. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Mom kept glancing at her phone, her fingers drumming nervously on the table. My brother, always the skeptic, shot me a look across the table as if to say, "Do you feel this too?" Halfway through the meal, Mom's phone buzzed. She glanced at the screen, her face going pale. She stood up abruptly, her chair scraping against the floor. "It's the hospital," she said, her voice trembling. "It's about Grandma." We all froze. Grandma looked confused, glancing between us. "What do you mean?" "I'm right here." Mom ignored her, pressing the phone to her ear. "Yes, this is Mrs. Carter. What happened?" "Oh my God. Are you sure?" "I'll be right there." She hung up, her hands shaking. "They said Grandma's had a stroke. She needs immediate surgery. They need authorization for the payment now." The room erupted into chaos. My sister started crying, my brother demanded answers, and Grandma just sat there, bewildered. "I'm fine," she insisted, but Mom was already moving, grabbing her purse, her keys, her phone. "I have to go," she said, her voice breaking. "They need me at the hospital. I'll take care of everything." Before anyone could stop her, she was out the door, leaving us in stunned silence. I looked at Grandma, who was now clutching her chest, her face pale. "I'm fine," she repeated, but I could see the fear in her eyes. We sat there for what felt like hours, waiting for news. My brother tried calling Mom, but she didn't answer. My sister paced the living room, wringing her hands. I stayed with Grandma, holding her hand, trying to reassure her and myself that everything would be okay. Finally, Mom called. Her voice was calm, almost too calm. "Everything's fine," she said. "Grandma's in surgery. The doctors say she'll pull through, but they needed the payment immediately. I authorized the transfer from her account." I felt a chill run down my spine. Grandma's account was where she kept the family fortune, the $3.6 million she'd saved over a lifetime. How much did they need? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. "All of it," Mom replied. It was the only way to guarantee her care. The call ended, and I stared at the phone in disbelief. All of it? That couldn't be right. I looked at Grandma, who was now shaking her head, tears streaming down her face. "I never authorized that," she whispered. "I never gave her access." The next morning, we went to the hospital. There was no record of Grandma being admitted, no surgery, no emergency. The staff looked at us with confusion, insisting that no one by our name had been there the night before. That's when the truth started to unravel. Mom had faked the entire emergency. There was no hospital call, no surgery, no crisis. She'd used the chaos of the moment to access Grandma's account and transfer every last cent to herself. The shock was overwhelming. My sister collapsed. In tears, my brother punched a hole in the wall, and Grandma just sat there, broken. I felt numb, unable to process what had happened. How could Mom do this? How could she betray us all for money? But the story didn't end there. As the days passed and the anger simmered, something unexpected began to happen inside me, a question I couldn't ignore. What would I do if I were in her place? And could I ever forgive her for what she'd done? The days after Mom's betrayal felt like living in a bad dream. The house was silent, except for the occasional sound of someone crying behind a closed door. My brother barely spoke, my sister wandered the halls like a ghost, and Grandma just sat in her chair, staring at nothing. I tried to keep busy washing dishes, folding laundry, making tea for Grandma, but nothing could fill the emptiness that had settled over us. Mom didn't come home that night or the next. Her phone was off, her car gone. We didn't know where she was, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to see her. I was angrier than I'd ever been. How could she do this to us, to Grandma, to her own children? The betrayal felt like a wound that wouldn't stop bleeding, but as the hours turned into days, my anger started to shift. I found myself thinking about all the times Mom had been there for us, late-night fevers, scraped knees, heartbreaks, and disappointments. I remembered the sacrifices she'd made, the way she'd worked 2 jobs to keep us fed, the way she'd always put us first, even when it meant going without herself. I thought about the stress she'd been under lately, the bills piling up, the fear of losing the house, the way she'd started to withdraw from all of us, little by little. I started to wonder if maybe, just maybe, there was more to her actions than pure greed. Maybe she was desperate. Maybe she felt trapped. Maybe she made a terrible choice because she saw no other way out. On the 3rd day, Mom came home. She looked older, smaller, as if the weight of her actions had physically shrunk her. She didn't say a word as she walked through the door, just stood in the hallway, her eyes red and swollen. We all gathered in the living room, the tension so thick you could almost taste it. Grandma was the first to speak. Her voice was soft but steady. "Why, Mary?" she asked. "Why did you do it?" Mom's shoulders shook as she tried to answer. I was scared, Mom. The bills, the mortgage, the thought of losing everything you worked for. I thought if I could just get ahead, just for a little while, I could fix it before anyone noticed. I never meant to hurt you. I never meant for any of this to happen. My brother's voice was sharp. You stole from your own mother? From all of us. Mom nodded, tears streaming down her face. I know, and I'm so sorry. I don't expect you to forgive me. I just wanted you to know the truth. The room was silent. I looked at my siblings, at Grandma, at the woman who had raised us, who had made a terrible mistake. I felt the anger, the hurt, the betrayal, but underneath it all, I felt something else, too, compassion. I saw not just the woman who had stolen from us, but the mother who had loved us, who had lost her. I took a deep breath and spoke, my voice trembling. What you did was wrong, Mom. It hurt all of us. But I can't carry this anger forever. I don't want to. I forgive you. My brother stared at me in disbelief. How can you just forgive her? I shook my head. I'm not saying it's okay. I'm not saying we forget what happened. But holding on to this anger will only destroy us. We have to find a way to move forward. My sister wiped her eyes and nodded. I don't want to hate you, Mom. I just want our family back. Grandma reached out and took Mom's hand. You made a mistake, Mary, a big one, but you're still my daughter. We'll get through this, together. Mom broke down, sobbing, into Grandma's arms. For the first time since the truth came out, I felt a sense of relief, a sense that maybe, just maybe, we could heal. The next few weeks weren't easy. We had to face the consequences of what had happened. The money was gone, and there was no getting it back. We had to sell the house, move into a smaller place, and tighten our belts in ways we never had before. But through it all, we stuck together. We talked, we cried, we forgave. We learned that family isn't just about the good times, it's about surviving the storms together. Mom worked hard to make amends. She got a new job, started paying back what she could, and never once asked for our forgiveness again. She knew it had to be earned, day by day, moment by moment. And slowly, the trust began to rebuild. One night, as we sat around our new, smaller dinner table, Grandma raised her glass. To family, she said. To forgiveness, and to never giving up on each other. We all raised our glasses, the pain of the past still there, but softened by the hope of a better future. Adjusting to our new life wasn't easy. The house we moved into was half the size of the old one, with creaky floors and faded wallpaper, but it was ours. We learned to make do with less space, less money, but somehow more of each other. The first few nights, it felt strange to hear every sound, to bump into each other in the narrow hallway, to share a bathroom again after so many years. But slowly, the unfamiliar became familiar, and the new house started to feel like home. Mom threw herself into her new job at the local grocery store. She worked long hours, sometimes double shifts, coming home exhausted but determined. She never complained, never asked for sympathy. Instead, she focused on what she could do, making dinner, helping Grandma with her medicine, sitting with us at the table every night, no matter how tired she was. There was a humility in her now, a quiet strength that I hadn't seen before. Grandma, too, changed in small but important ways. She started baking again, filling the house with the smell of fresh bread and cinnamon rolls. She'd call us into the kitchen, her hands dusted with flour, and teach us the recipes she'd learned as a girl. Those afternoons became our new tradition, kneading dough, sharing stories, laughing at old memories. It was in those moments that I realized forgiveness wasn't just a word. It was an action, a choice we made every day. My brother took longer to come around. He kept his distance, spending hours at the gym or out with friends, barely speaking to Mom except when necessary. I could see the pain in his eyes, the way he carried the betrayal like a weight on his shoulders. One night, I found him sitting on the back porch, staring up at the stars. "Do you think things will ever feel normal again?" he asked, his voice barely above a whisper. I sat beside him, pulling my knees to my chest. "I don't know. Maybe not the way they were, but maybe that's okay. Maybe we get to decide what normal means now." He was quiet for a long time. "I want to forgive her, I really do. But every time I look at her, I just remember what she did." I nodded, understanding more than I could say. "It's not about forgetting, you know. It's about choosing not to let it control you. About letting yourself heal." He sighed, rubbing his eyes. "I'll try." And he did. Slowly, he started joining us for dinner again, laughing at Grandma's stories, helping Mom with the groceries. It wasn't perfect, but it was progress. My sister, always the peacemaker, became the glue that held us together. She organized movie nights, dragged us out for walks in the park, and insisted on family game nights every Friday. She was the first to hug Mom, the first to forgive, the first to remind us that love was bigger than any mistake. As for me, I found myself changing too. I started journaling, pouring my thoughts onto paper, trying to make sense of everything we'd been through. I realized that forgiveness wasn't just about Mom. It was about freeing myself from the anger and hurt that threatened to consume me. It was about choosing hope over bitterness, love over resentment. One evening, as we sat around the dinner table, Mom cleared her throat. I know I can never make up for what I did, she said, her voice trembling. But I want you all to know how grateful I am for your forgiveness, for your patience, for giving me a second chance. I promise I'll spend the rest of my life trying to be the mother you deserve. Grandma reached over and squeezed her hand. We're all learning, Mary, every day. That's what family is for. We sat there in the soft glow of the kitchen. Light, the shadows of the past still lingering, but no longer defining us. We were a family, broken but healing, scarred but stronger. And for the first time in a long time, I believed that we would be okay. As spring turned to summer, our family found a new rhythm. The pain of what had happened was still there, but it no longer controlled every conversation or shadowed every meal. Instead, we learned to talk about it openly, sometimes with tears, sometimes with laughter, and sometimes with a silence that said more than words ever could. Healing, I realized, wasn't a straight line. Some days were easier than others. Some days the old anger would flare up, especially when bills came due or when we passed by our old house on the way to the store. But most days, we chose to move forward. Mom's single quotes as efforts to rebuild trust were constant and genuine. She never missed a family dinner, no matter how tired she was. She started volunteering at the community center, helping other families who were struggling. She even began attending a support group for people who had made financial mistakes, determined to understand herself and her choices better. Sometimes I'd see her sitting quietly in the living room, reading books about forgiveness and redemption, underlining passages that spoke to her. One afternoon, I came home to find Mom and Grandma sitting together at the kitchen table, a stack of old photo albums spread out between them. They were laughing over faded pictures, birthdays, holidays, vacations we'd taken when we were little. For a moment, it felt like nothing had changed, like we were just a normal family again. But then I saw the way Mom looked at Grandma, her eyes full of regret and gratitude. And I knew that everything had changed, and that was okay. My brother started to open up more too. He and Mom began taking long walks together in the evenings, sometimes talking, sometimes just walking in comfortable silence. One night, he came home and hugged her without saying a word. I saw the relief on Mom's face, the way her shoulders relaxed, and I knew that a piece of her heart had been mended. My sister threw herself into her studies, determined to win a scholarship for college. She worked part-time at a local cafe, saving every penny she could. Sometimes late at night, I'd find her at the kitchen table, textbooks spread out, Mom sitting beside her, helping her study. It was a small thing, but it meant everything. As for me, I found comfort in small routines, morning runs through the neighborhood, afternoons spent reading in the park, evenings journaling by the window. I started volunteering at the same community center as Mom, helping kids with their homework, listening to their stories. It felt good to give back, to be part of something bigger than my own pain. One Saturday, the community center held a potluck dinner. Mom made her famous lasagna, Grandma baked a mountain of cinnamon rolls, and the rest of us pitched in however we could. The room was filled with laughter and music, the air thick with the smell of home-cooked food. As I looked around at the faces, some familiar, some new, I realized how far we'd come. We weren't the same family we'd been before, but maybe that was a good thing. That night, as we walked home under the stars, Mom slipped her arm around my shoulders. "Thank you," she whispered, "for not giving up on me, for believing I could be better." I squeezed her hand, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in my heart. We're all learning, Mom, all of us. The next morning, Grandma surprised us with a new tradition. She called us all into the kitchen and handed each of us a small empty jar. Every week, she said, "I want you to write down one thing you're grateful for and put it in this jar. At the end of the year, we'll read them together. At first, it felt silly. But as the weeks went by, I found myself looking forward to it. Some days, my notes were simple: mom's lasagna, a sunny day, a good book. Other days, they were harder: forgiveness, second chances, family. But each note was a reminder that even in the hardest times, there was always something to be grateful for. By the end of summer, our jars were full. We gathered in the living room, laughter and tears mingling as we read our notes aloud. It was a small thing, but it brought us closer, reminding us that healing was possible, that love could survive even the deepest wounds. We still had a long way to go. There were days when the past felt too heavy, when the future seemed uncertain. But we faced it together, one day at a time, choosing forgiveness, choosing hope, choosing each other. Autumn arrived with a chill in the air and golden leaves swirling down our street. With each passing week, our family grew a little stronger, a little more open. The pain of what had happened was still there, but it was softer now, like an old scar that no longer ached every time you moved. We had learned to talk about it, to let the truth breathe, and to let each other heal in our own ways. Mom's transformation was the most remarkable. She became a fixture at the community center, not just volunteering, but leading workshops on financial responsibility and sharing her own story with honesty and humility. People listened, some with tears in their eyes, others with hope. She never painted herself as a victim or a villain, just a mother who had made a terrible mistake and was trying every day to be better. Her courage inspired others, and slowly, she became a source of strength for people who were struggling with their own regrets. Grandma's health, fragile as it was, seemed to improve with the new sense of peace in the house. She spent her afternoons in the garden, tending to her roses and humming old songs. Sometimes she'd call us outside to help her, and we'd spend hours pulling weeds, planting bulbs, and listening to her stories about the past. Those moments became precious, a reminder that even after everything, we still had each other. My brother, who had once carried so much anger, found a new outlet in coaching a local youth soccer team. He poured his energy into helping the kids, teaching them not just about the game, but about resilience and teamwork. I saw him laugh more, smile more, and even joke with Mom in the kitchen. The wall between them was coming down, brick by brick. My sister's hard work paid off. She won a scholarship to her dream college. The day the acceptance letter arrived, we all celebrated together, crowding around the kitchen table as she read the news aloud. Mom cried, Grandma baked a cake, and my brother lifted her off the ground in a bear hug. It was a victory for all of us, proof that even after a loss, new beginnings were possible. As for me, I found myself drawn to writing more than ever. I started sharing our story anonymously online, hoping it might help someone else who is struggling with forgiveness or family betrayal. The responses were overwhelming messages from strangers who had been through similar pain, who thanked me for giving them hope. I realized that our story, as messy and imperfect as it was, had the power to heal not just us, but others too. One evening, as the first hints of winter crept in, we sat together in the living room, the fireplace crackling and the jars of gratitude. Notes lined up on the mantel. Mom looked around at all of us, her eyes shining with emotion. I know I can never undo what I did, she said quietly, but I want you to know that every day I am grateful for your forgiveness. You gave me a second chance when I didn't deserve it. I promise I'll never take that for granted. Grandma reached over and squeezed her hand. We all make mistakes, Mary. What matters is what we do after. My brother nodded. We're not perfect, but we're still a family. My sister smiled, her eyes bright, and we always will be. We sat there in the warmth of the firelight, the shadows of the past flickering on the walls, but no longer haunting us. We had lost a lot: our house, our savings, our sense of security. But we had gained something too: a deeper understanding of each other, a new kind of strength, and a love that had been tested and survived. As the night wore on, I realized that forgiveness wasn't a single act, but a choice we made every day. It was in the way we spoke to each other, the way we listened, the way we showed up, even when it was hard. It was in the laughter that returned to our home, the hugs that lasted a little longer, the hope that grew with every new day. We still had challenges ahead. There were bills to pay, dreams to rebuild, and wounds that would take time to fully heal. But we faced them together, with open hearts and open hands, ready to forgive, ready to love, ready to begin again. Winter settled in, blanketing our small town in quiet and cold. The holidays approached, and for the first time in years, we didn't have the money for big gifts or fancy decorations. But somehow, the season felt warmer than ever. We made do with what we had: stringing popcorn for the tree, baking cookies from scratch, and making handmade cards for each other. The laughter that filled our home was real, not forced, and every smile felt like a small victory over the darkness we'd faced. Mom worked extra shifts at the grocery store, sometimes coming home with tired eyes and cold hands, but she never complained. She saved every spare dollar, determined to help Grandma with her medical bills and to put a little something aside for each of us. On Christmas Eve, she surprised us with a simple but heartfelt gift: a framed photo of our family, taken in the new house, all of us together, smiling. On the back, she'd written, "Thank you for believing in me. I love you all more than words can say." That night, we sat around the fireplace, sipping hot chocolate and sharing stories. Grandma told us about her childhood Christmases when all she got was an orange and a pair of wool socks, but she remembered those years as the happiest of her life. "It's not about what you have," she said, her eyes twinkling. "It's about who you have." My brother, who had once been so angry, handed Mom a card he'd made himself. Inside, he'd written, "I forgive you, Mom. I'm proud of how hard you're trying. I love you." Mom hugged him, tears streaming down her face, and for the first time, I saw the last bit of guilt lift from her shoulders. My sister, home from her first semester at college, brought stories of new friends and new dreams. She thanked Mom for teaching her what real strength looked like, not the kind that never falls, but the kind that gets back up again and again. "You showed me that forgiveness is possible," she said, "and that's the greatest gift you could ever give." As for me, I found myself reflecting on how much we'd all changed. I realized that the pain we'd endured had made us softer, not harder. We were more patient with each other, more willing to listen, more eager to help. The little things: a shared meal, a kind word, a quiet evening together meant more than they ever had before. On New Year's Eve, we gathered in the living room, each of us holding our jar of gratitude notes. One by one, we read them aloud, laughing and crying as we remembered the moments that had carried us through the year. Some notes were simple: a warm bed, a good book, a hug from Mom. Others were deeper: forgiveness, second chances, family. When it was Mom's turn, she reached into her jar and pulled out a single note. Her voice trembled as she read, "I'm grateful for the chance to make things right." She looked at each of us, her eyes shining with hope. "Thank you for giving me that chance." We hugged, the five of us, holding on a little tighter, a little longer. The clock struck midnight, and as fireworks lit up the sky outside, I felt a sense of peace I hadn't known in a long time. We had survived the storm, and though we were still healing, we were healing together. The months that followed brought new challenges, unexpected expenses, tough days at work, moments when the past threatened to creep back in. But we faced them as a team, leaning on each other, reminding ourselves of how far we'd come. Mom continued to work hard. Grandma's health held steady, And my siblings and I chased our dreams with a new sense of purpose. I kept writing, sharing our journey with others, hoping that our story might help someone else find the courage to forgive, to heal, to start again. The messages I received from strangers, some who had forgiven, some who were still struggling, reminded me that we were not alone. Our pain, our hope, our love was part of something bigger. One evening, as spring approached, Mom sat beside me on the porch, watching the sun set over the rooftops. "I know I can never change what happened," she said quietly, "but I can choose what I do next. I can choose to be better every day." I smiled, feeling the truth of her words settle deep in my heart. "And we can choose to forgive every day." We sat there in the fading light, the world quiet around us, and I realized that forgiveness wasn't just a gift we gave to Mom, it was a gift we gave to ourselves. It was the key that unlocked the door to healing, to hope, to a future we could build together. Spring brought with it a sense of renewal, not just in the world outside, but within our family too. The days grew longer, the air warmer, and the garden Grandma loved so much burst into color. She spent her mornings tending to the flowers, humming softly, her hands steady and sure. Sometimes I'd join her, kneeling in the dirt, listening to her stories about resilience and hope. "You know," she'd say, "flowers don't hold grudges. They just keep reaching for the sun no matter how many storms they've weathered." Those words stayed with me. I saw them reflected in my family every day. Mom, who had once seemed so weighed down by guilt, now moved with a quiet confidence. She still worked hard, but she also made time for herself, reading, walking, even joining a book club at the community center. She laughed more, and when she smiled, it reached her eyes that my brother's soccer team made it to the finals that spring. We all went to cheer him on, bundled in jackets, waving homemade signs. When his team won, he ran straight to Mom, hugging her in front of everyone. It was a small moment, but it felt like a victory for all of us, a sign that forgiveness had truly taken root. My sister came home for spring break, her arms full of books and her head full of dreams. She talked about her classes, her friends, and the future she was building for herself. She thanked Mom for teaching her that mistakes don't define you, and that love is strongest when it's tested. "I'm proud to be your daughter," she said, and I saw Mom's eyes fill with tears. As for me, I found myself growing too. I started leading a writing group at the community center, helping others share their stories of struggle and healing. I realized that our family's journey wasn't just about surviving a crisis, it was about learning to live with open hearts, to trust again, to believe in second chances. One Sunday afternoon, we decided to host a small gathering at our house. We invited neighbors, friends from the community center, and even a few people who had once been strangers but had become part of our extended family. The house was filled with laughter, music, and the smell of Grandma's cinnamon rolls. Mom stood in the kitchen, chatting with guests, her face relaxed and happy. During the party, one of our neighbors pulled me aside. "Your family is amazing," she said. "I know you've been through a lot, but you'd never know it from the way you all treat each other. There's so much love here." Her words made me pause. I looked around at my family, Mom laughing, with Grandma, my brother and sister playing cards at the table, the sunlight streaming through the windows, and I realized she was right. We had been through so much, but we had come out the other side stronger, more connected, and more grateful for each other. That evening, after everyone had gone home, we sat together in the living room, tired but happy. Mom looked at us, her eyes shining. "I know I say this a lot, but thank you. Thank you for giving me another chance, for believing in me, for loving me even when I didn't deserve it." Grandma smiled, her hands folded in her lap. "That's what family is for, Mary. We lift each other up. We forgive, we grow. My brother grinned, and we eat a lot of cinnamon rolls. We all laughed, the sound filling the room, warm and bright. In that moment, I knew that forgiveness had changed us, not just Mom, but all of us. It had taught, used to be kinder, to listen more, to hold on to hope, even when things seemed impossible. As spring turned to summer, I felt a sense of peace settle over our family. We still had challenges, still had days when the past hurt, but we faced them together, with open hearts and open hands. We had learned that forgiveness wasn't a weakness, but a strength, a choice to let go of anger and make room for love. And as I watched my family gathered together in the fading light, I knew that we were exactly where we were meant to be. Summer arrived with sunlight streaming through our windows and the scent of fresh-cut grass drifting in from the yard. Our little house, once a symbol of loss, now felt like a sanctuary, a place where forgiveness had taken root and grown into something beautiful. The pain of the past hadn't vanished, but it no longer defined us. Instead, it had become a quiet strength, a reminder of how far we'd come and how much we'd overcome together. We celebrated Grandma's birthday in July, inviting everyone who had become part of our journey, neighbors, friends from the community center, even a few of Mom's coworkers. The house was filled with laughter, music, and the clatter of dishes as we shared a meal around the crowded table. Grandma beamed as we sang to her, her eyes shining with pride and gratitude. "This is what matters," she said, her voice strong. "Not money, not things, just love and the people you share it with." After dinner, Mom stood up to make a toast. She looked around the room, her gaze lingering on each of us. "I know I've said it before, but I'll say it again. Thank you. Thank you for forgiving me, for believing in me, for letting me be part of your lives. I promise to spend every day earning that trust and to never take it for granted." There were tears in her eyes, but her voice was steady. The room was silent for a moment, then filled with applause and hugs. I saw my brother squeeze Mom's hand, my sister lean her head on her shoulder, and Grandma wrap her arms around all of us. In that moment, I realized that forgiveness had not only healed our family, it had made us stronger than we'd ever been. As the summer days stretched on, we found joy in the simple things. We spent evenings in the backyard, watching fireflies and telling stories. We took long walks together, exploring the neighborhood and dreaming about the future. Mom and I started a small garden, planting tomatoes and herbs, laughing as we learned what would grow and what wouldn't. My brother taught Grandma how to use a smartphone, and my sister helped organize a fundraiser at the community center to help other families in need. I kept writing, sharing our story with anyone who needed to hear it. The messages I received from strangers, some who had forgiven, some who were still struggling, reminded me that our journey was part of something bigger. Forgiveness, I realized, was a gift that kept on giving, rippling out into the world in ways we could never have imagined. One evening, as the sun set and the sky turned pink and gold, Mom and I sat on the porch, sipping iced tea. She looked at me, her eyes soft. "Do you ever wish things had happened differently?" she asked. I thought about it for a moment, then shook my head. "No, I wish it hadn't hurt so much, but I wouldn't trade what we have now for anything. We're stronger, closer, and more grateful than we ever were before." She smiled, a tear slipping down her cheek. "I'm proud of you, of all of you. You taught me what real love looks like." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "You taught us too. We all make mistakes, Mom. What matters is what we do next." As the stars came out, we sat in comfortable silence, the kind that only comes when you've walked through fire together and come out the other side. I knew there would still be hard days, still be moments when the past hurt, but I also knew that we would face them together, with open hearts and open hands. When I look back now, I don't see just the pain or the loss. I see the courage it took to forgive, the strength it took to heal, and the love that carried us through. Our story isn't about what was stolen from us. It's about what we chose to build in its place. And as I watched my family gathered together in the golden light of summer, I knew that we had found something worth far more than money. We had found each other and we had found peace.